Hey guys, it's Don for the OSBGL and welcome to another episode of Old Barney's Hobby Handiwork. And I'm here back in my backyard on my patio, just doing a little bit of hobby work here. It's been about 2 weeks since I last filmed anything on the troll sculpting, and I did a little bit of work on it a few days ago, but I've had a terrible head cold and I didn't want to film anything at that time because you would never have been able to understand a word I was saying. But anyway, let's take a look at where I am with this guy. I'm starting to get into the sculpting part now, which is new experience for me with Greenstuff for sure. And the more I get into it, the less and less green stuff I am adding, smaller and smaller pieces. I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube about it, and there's lots of videos on green stuff sculpting, but it's all really small stuff. I haven't actually been able to find a video of someone sculpting an entire figure yet. So if anyone knows of any videos like that, let me know what they are. Let me know where I can find them. Anyway, let's take a look at this guy. So this is where I am with him here, and I've been going around his body just adding chunks of green stuff to try to thicken it up. Like I've come in here along the legs, the back of both legs, and his butt, and added some material just to thicken it up. And same with the front of the legs, the crotch area. And I've started working a little bit on the feet, just trying to get a bit of definition on the design there. And I've glued this piece on here now, built that up a bit and glued that plastic armor plate on. I had to come in here and add a fair chunk of green stuff on because there was a big gap there, sort of just above where his armpit would be. So I filled that in. I went around his neck, and up at the top here I'm trying to sort of get to a final sort of layer. So I went around his neck and smoothed that out around the edge of the helmet there. And when I come around to this side, so between the plate here and the plate I've added there, I'll be running like a strap, and it'll be the same down on this side. I'll be running like a leather strap down here, and I'm not sure what I'm gonna do on the chest yet, if I'm gonna put like a bit of chainmail here or what I'm gonna do. I'll be putting a thick belt across his waist, and then I'll be putting probably more than just a loincloth type thing across his body there. And this is just not really well focusing. So I've added like a heavy metal plate across the top of his shoulders here. I just actually added more to it because there was an indent there, so I'm trying to even that out a bit. So that was sort of the first finished bit that I've tried to do. Came out okay. And that's about it for him right now. He's looking really patchy because I've been adding like large chunks of green stuff just to fill him out. Like his torso was very blocky, and so I ended up adding like a strip up the side here and a strip up the side here just to sort of round it out. And I think I've got it to the point now where he's pretty much proportioned where I need, but I need to work on sort of the final layer of clothing and all that. So he's taking shape, but it's slow. Kind of have to add bits here and bits there, and then wait for them to dry. And I like to wait like at least a day. So like I've added a bunch to him today, so probably won't do anything more with him today. And while I was working on that, I showed these in a couple of videos a while ago when I had just started them, so I'm just trying to finish these off. So I made sort of 2 of these scatter pieces, just cut on MDF, which these are just extra pieces of MDF that I had. And I'd been casting these crates and barrels from one of the Hearst molds that I own. And I was kind of mass producing them as much as I could. Every time I was casting, I've been making those because they're so handy for this type of scatter terrain. So I'd mounted them on here and started painting, and so today I worked on sort of the basing part of it. So you can see they're coming along. They're just about finished. I'm just thinking I might put a little bit more flock on here, like maybe a different color, maybe some static grass, and maybe a little bit something else here. But they're quite good. They're big. So this is the other thing I've been working on. I had a bunch of Grimhammers, which I had taken off the sprue and assembled, and then I primed them all black last night, and then I just gave them sort of watered down coat of lead belcher. Just, it's pretty well a primer coat, so I'll coat them now with Nuln oil and let them dry, and then next time I decide to be working on them, they'll be halfway done. These are really simple miniatures to paint, so I just thought I'd knock these off. I may need another couple of these guys for my battle companies, because I'm playing Airborne Dale, and when the Erebor warriors get promoted, they go to Grimhammers, and I'd like to actually run these guys in a tournament army sometime. Listen to a couple of really good recordings from Green Dragon where Jeremy on there was talking about running an entire army of Grimhammers, because like everybody sort of poo-poos the Grimhammers, right, because their cost and that, but he was talking about he ran an army of like 30 Grimhammers and a bunch of other stuff and did really well with it. So thought I'd maybe paint up a warband and throw it into an army. So anyway, that's it for now. I'll come back again when I get back to work on this guy, and hopefully I'll have these things all finished up and maybe these guys a little bit further along. Okay, that's it for now. Just putting in some work on my Grimhammers, and I'm just doing a dry brush special on these guys, so just a fast paint job. You can see here now I've done a little bit of work on the bases. I've glued down my gravel and put a couple of initial coats of paint on it. I try to do all of my bases the same so that all my stuff matches. And I use Mornfang brown on the edge, and for the sort of beige part over the gravel I use a Balor brown, but I water down the Balor brown like 50-50 with water, and after I glue the gravel down I go over it with a coat of that, wait for it to dry, and then I ink it and then highlight it again with the Balor brown. And here you can just see that, like, I've got two guys here that I've highlighted with Runefang steel. It's just a dry brush. So where's my finger? This guy and this guy, and this guy and this guy are they just have sort of the base coat of lead belcher with Nuln oil on them. So I'm going to do that for all of these guys, and again, it's just a quick job to get these guys to a battlefield standard or tabletop standard, I guess. You know, you can go and watch Damien O'Byrne did Grimhammers in his hobby vlog. I think it's his first 2 or 3 hobby vlogs. He did his Grimhammers, and he put a ton of work into them and made them look really amazing. So far more of like an expert level paint job than what I'm doing here. I'm just getting my guys so that I can get them on the table and play with them. But yeah, we'll be back after I do a bit more work on these guys. Okay, well I made some progress on these guys. I painted their, what would you call that, like underclothing or their kilt blue with some, put some blue ink with a bit of black ink mixed in, and then did 2 shades of the blue, a base of the blue, and then added a bit of white to it for a highlight. Painted their axe hafts, the Balor brown, and their pickaxes. I painted the axe haft black, and on a bunch of them I painted their beards black. Got some flesh tone in their eye sockets and put some Agrax Earthshade in there as well. So they're coming along. Not sure, they've got a belt around their midriff there, so I probably need to paint that a different color, just maybe paint that black, I don't know. So they're coming along anyways. So we'll soon get these guys finished. My troll is over here, I haven't touched him, so I'm trying to get these Grimhammers done just because they're taking up a lot of space on the table. So that's it for right now. Okay, so these guys are finished up. Had Sunday afternoon, sitting out on the patio. Managed to put some time in on these guys, and I got them all completed. Just tabletop standard, which is all I was going for, which is fine. It's all I ever go for these days. And you can see the paints in the background there. I got like these guys all painted with primarily only about 6 different paints. So next I will move on to finishing off the troll, which I did do a little bit of work on as well. You can see I added the strap on his shoulder there, and I'm doing a little bit more work on his feet because they're a little too small, so I extended his toenails there a bit, so then I'll cover those up again once those are dry with some more foot, I guess, make them a bit bigger. So back working on the troll here, and you can see I added about a week ago some more material to the toenails because I'm trying to extend the feet a little bit because they're a bit small. So those toenails are dry, and I'm going to try to add more flesh to the foot, and I've done that on this foot here, and I've tried to add in some sort of wrinkles on the top. So I just kind of made up a ball of green stuff and rolled it up into like a tube, flattened it out, and sort of spread it over top of the foot, and then tried to sculpt it into place. So you can see around the side. But you can see there that I was talking before where you get sometimes chunks of green stuff, and I didn't detect that one, that giant one right there. So it's kind of right in the middle of everything. Hopefully after it dries and everything it won't be that noticeable. I also added sort of a large chunk of material to the, trying to get the light here, to the upper thigh of both legs to try to fatten them up because they just weren't thick enough. So I tried to spread that out, and just up at the top of the leg where you can see where the material, I just added ends, like just by the crotch and the top of the leg there. I'm not really concerned about trying to get rid of that line because I'm going to be covering that over with like a belt and loincloth type thing. So that's where I am. So I'm going to do this other foot now, and I have another piece of, where to go, green stuff there that I just smooshed, which I'm going to be adding onto that foot. So we'll give that a try. So you can see what I mean. That's the piece of green stuff I'm going to add to the foot now. So kind of rolled it out into a tube and then flattened it out, and these tools are very handy for that. Like you just like roll that along the material, and you got to keep a lot of water on it. I'm holding on to the camera here so I can't really actually do it. So, and then I'm going to lift that off of there, hopefully intact, and I'll lay it right across the top of the foot here and try to mash it down and get it into shape and make it look nice. So I've added it on and just sort of gently pushed it over the foot where I want it to go. So I lifted it off of the plastic surface that I have here with my hobby knife and one of these tools, and I just laid it across the top of the foot where I want it to go, and now I'll try to shape it into place and make it look maybe a little nicer than that one. Okay, that one went on fairly well. So I've got it mashed down and shaped the way I want it. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to try to add a few wrinkles into the foot, and then do a little bit more work on trying to blend the new material into the old, which is what I have the hardest time trying to do with this. I've worked with clay before, which is an incredibly forgiving material compared to this Greenstuff. The Greenstuff is just, because of its very nature, it's like so sticky, it's very hard to blend into the existing material. Now, I did watch some videos, like I said, and I know if you add a little bit more yellow to the mix and not as much blue, the blue is the hardener and the sticky part. So if you eliminate some of that and go with more yellow, it helps, and it makes it so you can blend it a little bit better. But I don't know, I still have a real difficult time doing that. So anyway, we'll try that. So I've got my Isengard troll here, so just as a comparison, let me see if I can get his foot here. It's not that well. Oh, there you go. And you can kind of see that they have like wrinkles on the top of the foot there, and the skin over the nails. So, you know, that's kind of what I'm trying to replicate, I guess. Okay, that's about as good as I can get that. Added a couple wrinkles in using this tool. Where is it? It's one of the Games Workshop tools. They're actually excellent tools, I find. And then I smooth the edges down with this one, which is one of the Greenstuff tools with the rubber tip. And honestly, this is really one of the only ones I use. So the next step, so I've added material to that foot, added material to that foot, so hopefully they're done now. I've thickened up that leg, thickened up that leg, and that's really all I can do now, because there's so much material on there now. I can't really handle this guy anymore, or I'll be putting giant thumbprints on everything. So now he has to dry. So the next thing I'm going to work on, and I may try to do this now, I haven't decided yet. So for his upper back, what I'm going to do, I've pretty much decided, is I'm going to have, like down here, I'm going to be putting a wide belt. So it'll go fairly high on his back, probably to about there. So this area I want to cover over. I'm going to put a, what would you call that? A sheet or a section of like chainmail just hanging down, attached to this plate up here, and hanging down, covering over all of this really messy, patchy work I've done on his back. So that's my next thing. So what I'm going to try to do is I've cut out a template, just using a piece of paper towel to figure out exactly where I want this sheet of chainmail to go. So I figure that's about what I need. I'm going to have around the side, each side, there's going to be a belt attached to it, pulling it towards the front, sort of wrapping it around the torso. So I kind of want that sort of shape, and what I did was sort of transferred this shape using a Sharpie onto the plastic surface that I'm using to work with my green stuff. So that's what I'm going to try to do. I'm going to try to actually roll out a giant piece of green stuff, and you can see how big that is. That's my thumb there, so bigger than my thumbnail. So that's a big piece of green stuff. See how this goes. Just trying to figure out how much material to use. So I've got that chunk of green stuff, and I think I need a little bit more. So I'll have to add to that. Okay, that's what I'm going to go with. So I'm going to flatten that out now with my tools and try to mold it into the shape of the design that I have there. And there's lots of there's lots of YouTube videos on making capes, so this is going to be similar to that. I'm going to spread it out, and then I'm going to apply that to the model before I actually start poking the holes in it for the chainmail, so we'll see how that works out. Okay, that's what I've got. So I did most of this just with the blunt end of my hobby knife, using a lot of water to roll it out, and then using this tool again to just smooth out the green stuff. And pardon me, I actually used this tool to push in these areas here. It's going to be connected in 3 spots to the big steel plate, so it's going to be sort of drooping down there and there. And then I just used my hobby knife to sort of cut away a bit at the bottom because I wanted to sort of have a ragged appearance. So I put a lot of water down underneath this, so hopefully it's not going to be too difficult to lift off. And then I think I need to let this dry for probably about 20 minutes before I start trying to push the chainmail holes into it. So yeah, let's see how this goes. Okay, I had a really difficult time getting it off of the plastic surface. I got it off and really made a mess of it, so I actually put down a ton of water, put it back on, re-rolled it flat, and took it off right away. It's still messed up quite a bit, but it's on there now. Now to flatten it out and mold it, and then I'll wait a bit before I do the chainmail holes. Okay, that's the finished product. So you can see I sort of used one of the tools to poke some holes in the top where there's going to be some straps holding it to the metal plate. I added a couple of pieces vertically and blended it in to cause those giant waves in the material. And I had to actually spread that material to the left quite a bit in order to cover a seam in the previous green stuffing that I had done. And actually had to add a bit more material over here. There's still a nasty seam there, but I covered up quite a bit of it. And I'm going to run a strap between the back piece and the front armor plate and hopefully cover up some of that as well. And I think, considering how long it's taken me to put this on and the fact that I've actually never tried to do chainmail in green stuff before, I am going to call it a day on this, and this is just going to be a giant piece of leather on his back, and that's what we're gonna go with. So I'm going to chicken out on the chainmail this time. Yeah, so that's all the time I have to work on this guy today. Put probably about 2 hours of work into it, and I got that done, and the legs, beefed up the legs a bit, and the feet, so it's coming along. Next major thing is going to be the belt around the waist, and I'm going to have some armor plating of a sort hanging down from that belt, so that'll hopefully cover up a lot of my messy work. So that's it for today on this guy. Well, that's it for this episode. I managed to get 11 Grimhammers painted and ready to go, and made some decent progress on Mr. FrankenTroll. Please leave a comment. I'd really like to know if you have any insight on sculpting with green stuff. specifically how to blend new Greenstuff onto a model without leaving a visible seam. It's August 1st today, and the big Articon tournament is happening this coming weekend in Manchester. And the OSBGL has 3 of our members going over to participate, Andrew, Garrett, and Evan. So I just wanted to wish those guys the best of luck. Play well and do us all proud, but most of all, have fun and enjoy the experience. Anyway, guys, if you're in Ontario, Canada and watching this video, please check out our Facebook group. We've got tournaments happening pretty well every month. Our next event is in Ottawa at the Capital City Bloodbath, which runs from August 18th to the 20th, so check that out. And if you have an old Lord of the Rings army or a newly painted Hobbit army, get your toy soldiers out and come and play some games with us in the OSBGL, guys.